and start with a roll call.
Karen Kahn, Craig Curry, Carl Hopkins,
Present.
Jim Wilson,
Present.
Paul Bowen,
Here.
Dennis Houghton,
Here.
Carol Goodman. And we have a quorum.
Thank you. Any changes to the agenda?
Yes, sir. I'd like to remove item 12, which is the airport security overview presentation. This is a presentation that was intended for an overview for all of the commissioners. And with 3 of them being absent today, I think it would give a missed opportunity to share that information. So I would like to remove item 12.
Makes sense to me. Any objections?
No, none.
It is removed. Public comment. Any member of the public may address the Airport Commission on any subject within the jurisdiction of the Commission that is not scheduled before them that same day. The total amount of time is 15 minutes and no individual longer than 3. We have 3 requests here. I'll start with Samuel Huestis, excuse me, CAP attorney, Civil Air Patrol.
Thank you very much, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate this opportunity to talk to you for a couple of minutes. I am the legal officer for CAP for the Central Coast, in addition to some other things I do for the organization. And as the commissioners know and the staff know, we've been working for several months to find a new home and new arrangements for Civil Air Patrol. Currently occupying a part of this building, which we're informed the airport needs to use for some other purpose. So we've looked at several options, and we've had some back and forth, and due primarily to my schedule and so on, we haven't been as timely communicating with everybody as we would like. But I think we have probably worked out something that's going to work here. Yesterday we received from Mr. Thompson a proposal. It's a combination of a couple things we've talked about in the past, but one of them is to use the visitors for weekly meetings and some storage in what's called Building 304. And we think this is a good idea. We appreciate the work that the staff has done on bringing us to this point. And Mr. Thompson's offer, we would like to accept that offer, but we've got to, obviously, it has to be in a formal lease form. And we currently have a date to be out of the premises where we're in. I believe it's the 13th or 14th of October. It's actually a formal eviction date, if you want to call it that. And so while we work on getting the transition done, I realize there's not going to be another commission meeting until after that date to approve the new arrangements. So we just want to make sure that we don't have difficulty in the meantime. I don't anticipate it, but I want to make sure that that eviction date doesn't become problematic. And we do have an issue about our communications tower. We've talked about that with the staff, and I think we can work that out as well as part of the new arrangement. My guess is over there at the visitor center, there's a place somewhere for us to put up that tower. It's pretty unobtrusive, but it does provide us with our radio communications. So again, I just want to say thank you to the staff for bearing with us and working with us on this, and to Mr. Thompson for the offer that we got yesterday, and to all of the Civil Air Patrol people that worked on this as well. Thank you very much.
Just a quick question
Sure.
for you. So it's my understanding that you need the extra time because we won't see your new lease prior to your eviction. So you're asking for a little more time.
Well, I think we can proceed. It's just having it formalized, and because of not having a meeting until after that date in October, that's my concern. So if we can squeeze a little more time in there to get the lease formally approved, I would be grateful.
And Henry, is this something we can do?
I think the best approach is for them to respond to the proposal that's been presented, and we can discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Captain Neil Malone, also of the Civil Air Patrol.
Hello, as you mentioned, Captain Neil Malone of the Civil Air Patrol Squadron here that operates out of the administration building. So we do emergency services, we look for lost people, we do security, we do search and rescue. We have a great aerospace education program, like we have wind tunnel, we have STEM kits that we get from CAP. And through our cadet programs, we actually have members that actually go on to work at the airport. Like we certainly have members that are now working at the airport under law enforcement. We actually have people that work at the FBO that are former cadets at Civil Air Patrol. We have members that are in the military. And most recently, one of our members graduated, and he's working for NASA at Houston Space Center. So we actually do try to train our members so they can actually be part of the airport. And that's kind of what we want to be able to do, is to have continued close location at the airport and to actually help the airport too as far as providing workers. And we were under guidance from former Civil Air Patrol Commander John Switzer, who used to run the occupational program here at the airport, and specifically to train people to work at the airport. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Next, we have Steve Peterson, Civil Air Patrol.
Hello, I'm Steve Peterson. I'm not with the Civil Air Patrol. I'm a parent. My son is a cadet with the Civil Air Patrol. And I just wanted to come today to ask that the airport support the Civil Air Patrol, and particularly the cadet program, which I'm concerned that maybe you guys don't know that much about, because frankly, a year and a half ago, I'd never heard of it, Civil Air Patrol or the cadet program, until my son came home from Goleta Valley Junior High one day and said, hey, I want to join Civil Air Patrol. I said, okay, well, go check it out. And to me, it's a wonderful program. So when I heard that they were being evicted, it really concerned me. I just want to tell you, although it's rather tough in 3 minutes, a little bit about what I, as a parent, understand about the cadet program. Is my son, Jack Peterson, joined a year and a half ago, so I'm speaking for him, but the other cadets here and in the program. Of course, there's the weekly meetings he goes to, the weekend events, the monthly physical training. He's also now been able to go up 5 times and fly their Cessna 182, one of the CAP planes. That's one of the primary coolest things about the Civil Air Patrol, is actually getting to fly for free and maybe one day becoming a pilot. But in addition to that, as Neil Malone just said, that they have a STEM program where my son has put together model rockets, flown drones, and remote-controlled airplanes. They've taught him how to find an ELT and run the radios. They also started last year a Cyber Patriot team. Cyber Patriot it's a national program sponsored by the Air Force, where they encourage high schools and other Civil Air Patrol squadrons. They have teams, I think there's about 1,000 or more across the country, and they compete. It's a one-year event, and they repeat it every year. And the kids learn how to secure different computer systems against cyber hackers, which is something that's very important in the future, having kids that know how to do this. That's why, and Paul was nice enough to stop by. I was over there at the squadron, and he probably saw all the computers they have set up. That's part of the Cyber Patriot program of competing. And actually, for this first year, the team did very well. In addition to that, my son has participated in 2 SARXs. The cool thing is, not only do the seniors do the search and rescue exercises, but the cadets are welcome to participate. And my son has done 2 up at Santa Maria and 1 down at Camarillo, along with other cadets. This year, and 5 other cadets from the Santa Barbara Squadron went to the summer encampment. It's a 1-week program for California and the West region up at Camp San Luis. It's sort of like a boot camp for a week. They're on their own. The cool thing, I'll just mention very briefly, they take away cell phones. The kids have no phones for a week. That's probably the best thing I think about the program, but there's a lot more to it. In addition, they volunteer in the community. My son and the other cadets have marched in numerous parades. They've helped out at air shows. They were down at the Camarillo Air Show last year, this year. They were over at the San Ynez Airport Day volunteering this year. So the cadets and the seniors volunteer. They've been in parades. They've helped at Gersh Park, 4th of July, Lemon Festival. And a neat thing they do is they have a color guard. Now, again, I'll admit, 2 years ago I didn't even know what a color guard was. It's the guys in uniform and gals that march out holding the flag and 2 rifles on either side, and then they play the national anthem. It's really moving to see. Well, Civil Air Patrol Santa Barbara has a color guard that goes around to various veterans events and participates, and they're able to do that because the Santa Barbara Civil Air Patrol Squadron 131 exists, and it has a place to exist. That's about, there's a lot more to say, but I realize my time is limited. So I will just end by saying the Civil Air Patrol cadet program, there's the senior adult program doing its search and rescue and stuff, but it's the cadet program that encourages youth like my son and the other cadets here to get interested in aviation, learn about flying, learn about airports, all that, helping in the community. I think it's a great program and a great resource, and I would hope that the airport can find a way to support the Santa Barbara Civil Air Patrol Squadron 131 as opposed to evict them. So I hope that you find a way to support them and keep the program going. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Danielle. I'm sorry, I'm not going to try the last name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was that Daniel Richlick or is it Daniela?
Starts with an A.
There we go.
Not confusing at all. And I understand the last name. I'm Danielle. I joined Civil Air Patrol about 6 months ago, a little over 6 years ago, 6 months ago. And I was a cadet when I was a kid, so it was just, I was amazed that we had one in Santa Barbara when I found out about it. And it's a great program. I guess I'm just going to keep it super short. Just the one thing that I have noticed as working with these cadets is every single one of them, just in the short time that I've been with them, have grown in such amazing ways. Like I have one cadet who would barely say a word to anybody is now like out there and doing all these things that I would not have imagined day one that this kid would even do. I have kids who I would have said was completely irresponsible, like now has their stuff together and really being responsible and doing really well in school. This type of program does not just affect, whatever they do within Civil Air Patrol, but their life outside in the community, whether it's their homes, their homework, their responsibility of being held accountable, right? If they come to CAP and their uniform isn't the right way, they're going to get called out on it and corrected and saying, hey, this is what needs to be done, right? If they're talking instead of listening when they're supposed to be drilling, you better bet they will find out about it and be corrected, right? So it teaches them that level of responsibility that I think is very unique to this program that other programs don't necessarily provide. And then, of course, all the other things that you've heard about tonight. I won't rehash it, make you listen to it anymore. But those things are also very amazing, and I grew up with it. And I know a lot of the cadets even went on to being pilots as we all grew up, right? Which I know is a huge thing right now, which is a huge need. And if you guys need more of those, we can help push even more of the airspace. But more than we already are. But I just wanted to make sure that I got to have my 2 seconds of fame. But no, but just that you guys know that this is a great program that does great things. And the more that you guys support it, the more amazing things that we can do with these kids. Because they're all amazing kids. So that's it. But thank you.
Thank you very much. Amelia Reichild? All right. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Amelia Richlick. I am a cadet in the Civil Air Patrol. I've been a cadet for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. The main thing about Civil Air Patrol for me, not only do we learn aerospace and emergency services and everything like that, we also learn how to benefit ourselves for our future and for our current state. For example, we learn about leadership, and it's one of the main things we learn about in the cadet programs. It is very important. They teach us about psychology and everything like that that helps us be able to get jobs in the future. I know before I joined Civil Air Patrol, I was really shy. I couldn't talk to barely anyone. I wouldn't be able to do this now here, but I learned how to talk to people, how to communicate with others. I've also learned discipline and everything like that, and it just helps me grow as a better person. I know that other cadets in our squadron have learned other things, not just how to talk and how to engage in other people, but they've learned more about discipline and more about how to write a resume or how to get a job in the future. Everything about this we learn in Civil Air Patrol under leadership, academics, aerospace, and everything like that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ludo Cavadon.
Good evening. I'm Ludovico Cavedon. I am the communications officer, emergency service officer, and also mission pilot here at the Civil Air Patrol in Santa Barbara. One of the various services that Civil Air Patrol provides is also maintaining a communication infrastructure or frequencies nationwide, and this infrastructure is regarded as state-of-the-art by the Air Force, and the Air Force is providing equipment for Civil Air Patrol to maintain this infrastructure. And we have such a node here, a station here in Santa Barbara, right? That's why we have the tower and the big antenna. And the Civil Air Patrol has daily confidence checks on this communication infrastructure, and we do participate regularly from Santa Barbara. And so to be able to do that, we need a place where we can keep these radios. We have a few different kind of radios that are a secure place that is not publicly available, but we can access, go in, and do the confidence check, right? The idea is that this infrastructure is independent from phone networks or internet, so it can work even if the standard, the common infrastructure is momentarily non-operational. And another activity that we do here at CAP is, as was mentioned already, Cyber Patriot, this cybersecurity education and education-related competition for cadets of middle school and high school. I've been happy to be the coach for the team here in Santa Barbara, and the cadets who are participating, in addition to their weekly meeting, they also meet an additional time during the week to train and to learn, to practice for the upcoming round. And last year, indeed, the cadets did an amazing job and were able to qualify in the top-tier nation semifinals for the Cyber Patriot competition, right? And again, to do this, we need a place where the cadets can meet weekly and where we have the computers that they're using to run the images they're using for the competition, right? And that's an additional reason why we need some place to go on with these activities. And of course, as you know, Civil Air Patrol gets some equipment, some expensive equipment by the Air Force, but we get no funding to run our local squadron, right? Everything we do is basically run by the fees that the people who are volunteering also pay to buy whatever it's needed to go to move to run the squadron, basically. And that's why Civil Air Patrol cannot afford even partially reduced rent. I mean, we don't have the money to pay for that rent, and that's why the FAA had added that provision to allow, typically it's reduced to $0, $1, or very low rent, so that CAP can exist near the airport and provide services to the community. And I volunteer a lot of time with Civil Air Patrol, like everybody else in the squadron, because we believe in the excellence that Civil Air Patrol is promoting and the fact that can actually do a good contribution to the community. Thank you for your time.
I think there's one more. Danielle, wait a minute. Did we already have? We have two. Oh, Danielle Rochelle? Richland. Okay.
I'm going to take a little different stance from that. My name is Captain Daniel Richlick. I am in the Civil Air Patrol as a mission pilot, also as the educational officer. I'm also a physician in town and use a lot of my personal time for this organization. What I find really troublesome, and I'm going to take a little different approach, is that instead of coming to us and understanding what Civil Air Patrol does for the community, we were sent an eviction notice. We were then promised some space on the airport. We said fine, and tried to get them to understand that we are a non-profit organization. I give my time. All of these people give their time to help the community out. Not only we do that through the systems of emergency services, but we also help out the communities with our individuals, our young people. That wasn't taken into consideration, and we were told, again, there's a great space for you to move, but it's going to cost you $800 a month. And for an organization that doesn't have really any funding to do that, that's really like asking for the moon. Now, I probably give more than that a year in the time that I have to do not only to train myself to be competent for what I do for you, the community, but I also train, again, the cadets. Now, as a physician, I take care of a lot of people, and there's some times when I make a profit for what I do, and there are times when I don't make a profit, because it's so important to take care of that person that it doesn't mean very much. And what the city has said is that $9,600 a year is what we need to pay to continue our mission, to give back to the community. And I have to say, if $9,600 is what it takes, you want to eliminate our squadron from the airport for $9,600, I'm going to tell you that's a really poor investment. And if it's that amount of money that the airport requires in order to be somewhat in the green or in the black, then I think you need to relook at what you're doing. In essence, you are giving us a space that will limit our capabilities. We are graciously there to accept it, again, because we have no other choice. But you have numerous places on the field that are available that we could utilize that are not being utilized. Our original lease basically stated that we had to have an aircraft on the field, and we were told because we don't have an aircraft on the field, we're going to be evicted. I have an aircraft on the field, but that wasn't good enough. The other people in the squadron have aircraft on the field. That wasn't good enough. You're taking away our ability to do our job, and we will take whatever you can give us, but be considerate of the fact that we are volunteering for the community, and understand that the monetary value of $9,600 a year, think about what that is really worth. Thank you.
Thank you. That is the last of our public speakers. Liaison reports. Councilman Dominguez, I do not see. Councilman James Carrico, no. Neither of our councilmen are here today. All right, so we'll go to the director's report.
Good evening, Commissioners. The High Sierra restaurant has been officially closed by the owners who no longer wish to operate a restaurant here in Santa Barbara. Staff, with the support of the City Attorney's Office, is in final negotiations with the owner of the High Sierra restaurant on an exit agreement. Final terms of this agreement will be brought before the lease subcommittee prior to presentation to the full commission. It is expected that negotiations will be finalized within the next week. Staff will identify potential options for the property in the coming weeks. And I had some comments on the Civil Air Patrol, but I think we've heard quite a bit, and my comments were consistent with the attorney, so I won't bore us with that. On the evening of August 25th, 2019, a privately owned C-130 aircraft crash-landed at Santa Barbara Airport, resulting in the immediate closure of the airport. Our staff and our mutual aid partner agencies responded immediately to this emergency to ensure the fire was extinguished and the crew members exited the aircraft safely. There were no injuries or fatalities, thankfully. As the incident was brought under control, attention turned to the investigation and recovery phase of the operation. Staff worked with the FAA to complete the necessary investigation and turned our attention towards recovery, which included the reopening of the airport. Airport maintenance, operations, and police staff worked nonstop to ensure the aircraft was removed, necessary repairs were made to the airfield, and the airport was reopened. Because of the commitment and hard work of first responders and airport staff, the total closure time was only 18 hours. Flight activity was suspended pretty much for a full day as a result of this. The recovery efforts continue on this incident with environmental cleanup, necessary repairs to the airfield, and other related issues. And with that, I have some staff reports, starting with
Good evening, Commissioners. I just have couple of notes for you this evening. The day after the incident with the C-130 was another important event here at the airport. We launched our first shared use gate podium in the terminal. It's really an exciting project that's been going on this year that will enable us to use all of our gates most efficiently for all of our carriers. So that evening we transitioned what we now know as Gate 2A. It's a gate that's being used by American Airlines and Delta. And it's been a good thing, actually, that we transitioned this first gate sort of in the conjunction with bringing on Delta, because we've had some time to kind of work out a bit of the kinks. And by kinks, I mean people accidentally unplugging it, people loading the paper upside down, things like that. So in this interim period before we can the rest of the gates, we're sort of getting our routines together for how we manage that shared resource, because it is a shared resource now that is the responsibility of the airport, as opposed to how it's been in the past with each carrier being responsible for its own gate podiums. So the rest of the conversion is anticipated to take place around October 20th. We're getting in the rest of the equipment, the actual inserts for the podiums, and then we have to very carefully phase the transition of those podiums with the flight activity, obviously. So that will take place over likely a week's period of time with testing, employee training, and that kind of thing. So it really is bringing us into sort of the next generation of the use of our terminal. And then in other news, I think most of us know that it is lemon season again. The Lemon Festival is coming up again this weekend. And again, Santa Barbara Airport will be the sponsor of the Kids Zone. So we're one of two main sponsors for the festival. This year, we actually have too many volunteers, have so many people who want to work in the booth that we can't fit any more people in. And this year, again, for the second time, Contour is going to be donating 2 tickets to our raffle contest. So we were looking forward to that opportunity to interact with the community. It's one of those great things we do every year. October 5th is also another interesting event, if you want to call it that, here at the airport. It's an architectural event. It's actually the American Institute for Architects that will be doing their Architours here in Santa Barbara, and they will be visiting the 6100 Hollister project. It was one that was selected as sort of a moving tour through town, and they will be going to visit that development, which of course is a LEED certified project. So we're pretty proud about that. And that's about it for today.
okay, operations.
Good evening, Commissioners. A very exciting day around the airport. If any of you have been in the area, you've noticed all the first responders that were on site today. So today we actually conducted our triennial air disaster exercise, and we do that in order to test our response to any major air crash that may occur on the airport. It is a federal requirement under Part 139 that we conduct this exercise every 3 years, every year in between. It's just a tabletop exercise, but today was the full-blown exercise. And while we had just a real-world air crash on our airport, as Henry had spoken to just 30 days ago today, we were able to demonstrate our capability to respond to a major air crash that focused on commercial aviation with multiple casualties that required transport by our first responders. I would say overall the exercise was a success. We learned a lot about our capabilities and any deficiencies that we can then address subsequently with updates to our airport emergency plan. So first and foremost, I would like to thank all of our partner agencies, which I anticipate or I've read, is approximately 24 different agencies that participated today. And through this dry run, we've learned even more about what we need to do in the future should this occur again.
Facilities?
Good evening. I just wanted to give an update on last month. I talked about the substation failure in Hangar 15. So we're about complete with design on the new switchgear, but we learned that fabrication was going to be an extended period, probably 4 months or more. So we're looking at other options to supply power to that facility kind of on an interim basis and get away from the generator power. So we'll be doing that in the next few weeks, getting that transitioned over so that we don't have to run the generators.
That concludes the director's report.
Questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, on our substation one, it's very unfortunate to have such a long lead time. Still looking into replacing the other similar units that will likely fail on us in the future?
The failure of this system, while old, it failed because of rodent damage into the substation. So we expect the other ones to be solid, and we'll look at our capital plan to replace the substations later. But it's not immediate. It's not
So
something.
it's not a failure due to age, it's a failure due to rodent activity?
Yes.
Ouch. Okay, thank you. And then, Henry, I'm not sure if you're the right one on this. The C-130 crash on that, probably mostly curiosity, is that going to be broken up on field or rehabilitated?
Well, there's some idea that it might be able to be rehabilitated, which is surprising to me if you saw it out there in the condition that it was. But that is the plan, to try and rehabilitate it.
Okay, thank you. The public's been very curious. I've been fielding questions.
Sure.
Anything else?
That's all I've got.
3 questions probably for Jeff. Hangar 2, I believe somewhere as I read that's happening soon.
Hangar 2, we have just sent the requisition into purchasing, so we'll be doing a job walk on that in the somewhat near future, in the next few weeks, for lead abatement and painting of Hangar 2.
So Hangar 2 is being done. Hangar 3 has already been done. 4 and 5 are going to be eventually removed. Does Hangar 1 need this? And if so, is it anywhere in our foreseeable budget?
We'll be working on developing the budget for the next year soon, so we'll see which projects rise to the top.
But it does need, it's in the same condition?
It's not as bad a condition as Hangar 2, but it could use some work, yes.
Okay, and the perennial question, since Bruce isn't here, I will ask is, are we any closer on the solar project?
We're not. We're kind of still looking at their latest proposal and seeing where we're going to go from there.
Thank you. Okay, next is a consent calendar. There are 2 items on there. One is that the airport waive the reading and approve the minutes of the commission meeting of Wednesday, August 21st. And the second is a property management report, that we received the property management report. Do I have a motion to approve both of those items?
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is item 7, the 4th quarter financial report. Now, do we need to open and then close, if necessary, public comment on this?
Chair Hopkins, I would recommend hearing the report and then opening and closing, if necessary, the public comment.
Thank you very much. The commission received a staff presentation regarding fiscal year 2019 4th quarter financial report.
Oh.
Good evening, Airport Commissioners. My name's Tom Bullers. I'm the airport analyst. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the fiscal year 2019. So that's the period from July 1st of 2018 until June 30th of 2019. I'll note that the numbers in here are preliminary, but we expect them to be substantially similar to what you see here. They're preliminary until the city finishes its audit this fall.
Okay, we're going to do this. We'll go to the link doesn't seem to be working, so we'll go to, I think this is it. Nope, not that one.
So just a few key indicators that impact our budget a lot. You can see monthly passenger traffic here. Fiscal year 13-14 were relatively good years for the airport, and then, as many of you know, we saw some declines to our lowest points in FY16. But we've seen some strong growth over the past few years, and especially here in the tail end of fiscal year 2019 in April, May, June. You can see some really significant increases over the previous months and previous fiscal years. In terms of total operations, you can see we were relatively steady there for a few fiscal years. We saw a couple of declines in fiscal year 17 and 18, below 100,000 operations, but FY19 has rebounded again over about 100,000. So that 100,000, 102,000 seems to be about where the airport is kind of settled in terms of annual total operations. And fuel sales is another important indicator for the airport's revenues. You can see here avgas has been relatively flat throughout this entire period from FY13 to 19. Jet fuel, similar, a little bit of growth, but as we've seen expansion with our passengers in commercial air service, we've seen the commercial airline jet fuel sales increase. And then just looking at some highlights at the end of the fiscal year, commercial industrial leases are really those buildings on the north side that we lease out to a variety of different tenants. That finished the year about 99% of budget. Terminal revenues are concessions. That includes parking, rental cars, the restaurant. The ground transportation program, we now have agreements signed with Uber and Lyft, so we'll start seeing those revenues. Unfortunately, in FY19, there was a little bit of decline in revenue versus budget because that program hadn't yet started. That was offset by rental cars, restaurants, and gift shops being up with our increases in passengers. And finally, parking finished at budget. Non-commercial aviation is really tied to our general aviation community. That finished the year about 99% of budget. The item that we saw a little bit of a decline versus budget was in the landing fees and fuel flowage fees. As Surf Air kind of pulled down their number of flights a day, we saw some declines in fuel sales and landing fees from them. Commercial aviation, again, with some our significant increases in air service, we finished the year at about 103% of budget, with some increases in landing fees and building rental from the airlines. Finally, miscellaneous revenue. During the budget development process, TSA indicated that the LEO reimbursement program might go away. That actually did not go away, but was continued at a slightly lower rate. So versus budget, that looks like a sizable increase. So overall, we finished the year about with revenues of about $20.5 million, about $93,000 above budget to the good. Looking at expenditures, we had about $670,000 in vacancy savings in our salaries and benefits line item. Those vacancies occurred throughout the department. We've seen significant vacancy savings over the past few years. We generally are in the 5 to 7% range. It was a little higher this year. In terms of material supplies and services, we realized about $317,000 in total savings in that item. We had a couple big contributors there. We had budgeted for some dedicated legal services from the city attorney. We realized some savings there, about $95,000. And then our switch to the new parking management contractor saved us about $76,000. During this fiscal year, we also conducted a refunding of our terminal bond debt. So previously, with our 2009 bonds, we were paying about $3 million annually in bond debt service. We've reduced that to about $2.5 million. The savings for the operating fund is about $450,000 for FY19, and then it'll be about $230,000 for the next 20 years as we pay off the bonds. So just looking at our total expenses, it was about $20.8 million. We realized about $1.5 million in total savings when you aggregate all those things together. So again, we have the vacancy savings of about $670,000. Those savings in materials, supplies, and services of about $317,000. And then the $450,000 in savings from the terminal bond refunding. Kind of the overall summary here, we had a deficit of about $308,000. That did include an appropriation of $1.2 million for the passenger boarding bridge. As you know, we have a lot of new airlines, and this is an important capacity enhancement for us at the terminal. That will actually be reimbursed by a federal AIP grant next summer. And we also, kind of offsetting that, additionally, that deficit, we had a budgeted surplus for this fiscal year starting July 1 of $1.4 million. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Questions? At this point, I'll open it for public comment. Are there any public comments? Then I'll close it for public comment. Oops, I'll open and close it for public comment. Turn my mic on here. Next item here is I guess we're going to have Tom again, fiscal the 2019 P3 year-end progress report that the Airport Commission received, the fiscal year 2019 performance measure report for all airport programs. Thank you, Tom.
Good evening again. The performance management program and budget are really related in a lot of ways. When the council adopts the budget, they also adopt our P3s. It's kind of our work plan, if you will, and allows us to kind of do some long-term planning on the department's operations. So it does have a lot of important goals. And this is generally consistent. A lot of municipalities have performance management type programs where they track various statistics on the effectiveness of their operations. So just on a kind of technical basis, the P3 program, we do develop this each fiscal year, and there's kind of a feedback cycle where we monitor it on a quarterly basis and then look at kind of the results and see how we can improve going forward. So just looking at fiscal year 2019, we have 8 airport programs, and we identified 59 total objectives. We accomplished 73% of those. There was a few that were not reportable. They didn't have data, for example. And then over the last 3 years, we averaged about 65%. And just to highlight a few of our major accomplishments, we completed the construction of the 5 buildings across the street at 6100 Hollister Avenue. Completed the preliminary design of the Taxiway H extension project. That's a master plan project. It'll be, right now the cost estimates are about $14 million, so it's going to be a really significant safety project for the airport in coming years. The 495 South Fairview hangar facilities, the ground lease expired and that returned to airport control, so that facility is now fully leased. We completed some switchgear repairs, but we have some additional ones. And we also established some preventive maintenance contracts over there. We achieved a 45% diversion rate for recyclables at the airline terminal. Our AOA maintenance group repainted the runway 725 center lines twice. And finally, we completed design for the access control system upgrade project. That's one of our FAA grant projects that will be starting here really soon, the construction for that. So just looking at some of the objectives that we did not complete for the fiscal year that were delayed a little bit, some of those staffing vacancies that we were talking about during the budget presentation, they flow through into the P3s, and so we had some missed targets in terms of work orders and the number of runway and taxiway sweepings. And then in terms of project delays, management system software implementation, that's taken a little bit longer. There's a lot more data that needed to be entered than we had anticipated originally for that project. Finally, again, the facilities maintenance group, due to some work volume, or a lot of work volume, delayed a little bit bidding out the projects to repaint Hangar 2 and replace the HVAC systems at the airfield electrical vault. And again, I'll take any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Another excellent report. Thank you very much, Tom. So I will open this for public comment. Please step up, say your name, even though you've already said it once, and make your comment.
Neil Malone. I just noticed that I know the administration building is going to move over by where FedEx is, and it looks like there's renovation going on there. Is that correct, or am I mistaken? And what is the timeline for the moving in the administration building?
We currently don't have any firm plans for a move. That's something we will be evaluating, but we don't have a plan right now.
Thank you.
Captain, would you mind filling out a speaker slip just so we could keep it in our records for this item? Sure. Thank you.
Any others? Then I will close public comment, and we will go on to item 9, the lease agreement with the Big Sail Group. Recommendation that we approve and authorize airport director to execute a 2-year lease agreement plus 3 one-year extensions. And since we're having a report on this, I won't go read the rest of it. Deanna, I gather you're up.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. We have 2 items for you to consider this evening. And the first one is going to be, actually, I'm going to flip through this because they're in a little backwards order. The first one is actually very, very similar to an item you would have seen last month, which was a lease agreement with a company by the name of Big Sail Group Incorporated for a unit at the 6100 Hollister development. So this is actually this same company that would like to lease the adjacent unit to the one that was approved last month. So in other words, they're looking to lease the entire building. So the lease terms are the same. The space is a little bit smaller, not much, so the rent is a little bit less, but essentially it is a similar lease to what was approved last month. So we're hoping that you would be interested in approving this one as well.
Any questions?
And we should have
Is the rate for the south side and the north side the same?
the back side, I believe, is a little bit less, approximately 5 cents a square foot, somewhere around in there.
Okay, and have they occupied the building that we approved last month?
No, but they're in the process of doing that.
Okay, so their rent starts
The October 1st is when they're going to start paying rent
on both of them?
on both of them.
Thank you very much. I will once again open this for public comment. Then I will close it for public comment, and we will go on to item 10, which is a consent to assignment of a lease between the City of Santa Barbara and Twin Lakes Golf Course.
Alrighty, Commissioners, I believe we're all familiar with Twin Lakes Golf Course. This item has actually been agendized not quite properly because recognizing that this actually is a 20-year lease, we would be asking for your approval to recommend approval to the City Council. So rather than simply just approving this consent to assign the lease. So what this is essentially, there is an LLC that is on the lease for this property, contain 3 partners, and one of those partners is purchasing the interest of the other 2 in that LLC. So it will be reformed as a single member LLC. So that requires us to do a consent to assign the lease to that remaining member. And again, because this lease is a 20-year lease commenced in 2002, we would need to seek your approval and then seek approval by the City Council.
Thank you. Any questions? No. I'm sorry, I think you just said it, but it's a 20-year lease starting when?
I believe it started in 2002. Is that correct, Tracy? Yes.
2002.
Yeah.
So even though there's not 20 years left.
Right. Initially, it was a 20-year lease.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, we're looking at 2 years remaining on this lease. It's just a change of name.
If I do the quick math, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I'm curious, since there's such little time left on the lease, why it has to still go to City Council.
Because it was initially a 20-year lease, and it had an ordinance associated with it. I'm sure Tava could give you better reasons than that, but it is a requirement of a lease that's over 5 years.
Okay.
Chair Hopkins, Commissioner Bowen, if I may. The reason it needs to go to council is any lease that's been approved by council, even though it only has the 2 years remaining, it requires the same council approval. So we're just asking that you recommend that the authorization, and we'll send it up to council on consent for final approval.
Okay, thank you.
And I would hope that in 2 years, you'll be back to us with another long-term lease for the same
We will certainly hope
property. Open it for public comment. Then I close it for public comment. And the next item is 11, the recommendation that the commission receive a presentation about the airport's marketing efforts planned for the upcoming fiscal year, or the current fiscal year 2020.
Chair Hopkins, if I may, could we open up 9 and 10 and have a motion? I wasn't sure if we made the motion for 9, but...
Nope, I'm sorry. So reopening 9, we do need to actually have a motion to approve and authorize.
I move that we approve and authorize item 9.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. And item 10, we need a recommendation to approve and authorize.
I'll make a motion to approve and authorize the city council to review the Twin Lakes Golf Course, please.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Tava. Sorry about that. Now on to item 11, which is a presentation that does therefore not need a motion. Please.
Alrighty, good evening again, Commissioners. In the spring of 2017, we came to the Commission with a new strategic marketing plan for the airport. It was a very comprehensive plan, included many things. It included our advertising, our paid advertising program, but many other things such as our community outreach and education programs and that kind of thing. So fast forward, now we're into the fall, believe it or not, fall of 2019. And we have made our way through that first 2 years of that strategic marketing plan, and want to let you know that we are going to be taking a fresh look at that marketing plan, looking forward another 2 years. Certainly, we haven't accomplished everything that we would have hoped in that period of time. We were pretty ambitious. And in your packet, you will find a memo that really details in greater detail the things that we have accomplished in that period of time. One of the things that we did in early in 2017 as well is that we brought on a new marketing firm to assist us with all of our marketing efforts, but particularly our paid media, because we do have a very modest budget for paid media, and so we really wanted to bring on some experts to help us figure out how to maximize that investment. So the firm we brought on was Hilltech Marketing. I think they should be familiar to you. They have been here a couple of times since the start of year 3 now with them. And so we have Chris Vargas and Kim Hilltech here tonight to give you a little bit of a forward-looking view into our future marketing program and even a little bit of a recap as well. So we're very happy to have them here from Sacramento today on our direct service on Contour.
Love it. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Thank you again for having us. As Deanna said, we're going to take you through, where am I pointing? Oh, that's a pointer. Oh, the right. Oh, there we go. So we will take you through a media recap. It's been an exciting fiscal year. I mean, I think Chris will steal the show with all the good details. And then we're going to dive into just a brief top line of the FY20 marketing and media plan. And this, excuse me, Deanna said we're working on the larger, more comprehensive plan. What we're talking about today really encompasses our paid media program with just a small touch on public relations. So we'll dive right in.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chris Vargas. I am the Media Director for Hilltech Marketing Group. I'm going to take you through our FY 18-19 media recap. When we were last here to present, we were deep in the planning process the last fiscal year, and that planning process was highly collaborative. We worked very, very closely with airport staff to formalize the process. We developed an RFP where we invited about 24 potential media partners to respond to our RFP. And once all of those proposals came back to us, We sat down with airport staff. We took a hard look at them. We were very critical of them relative to the goals that we'd set for ourselves for the then upcoming fiscal year. And we constructed a plan that we believe was very, very strong, and the results that we're going to share with you are based on that plan. As we were going through the planning process, we prioritized digital media platforms that offered really sophisticated audience targeting, as well as sophisticated reporting. And that reporting really allowed us to gain some new insights that ultimately will inform strategies moving forward. We also prioritized maintaining some select local media partnerships, and we'll get into the details on those. The overall planning parameters, we were targeting outbound passengers who live in the primary catchment area, and the media was really focused in the Santa Barbara DMA, which extends to as far north as San Luis Obispo and as far south as Ventura County. All of the media was broken out into 2 media flights. One was in the fall of 2018, and another was in spring of 19. And those media flights were really aimed at driving travel bookings leading into the holiday period, as well as the spring and the summer timeframe. The planning budget was $150,000, and the resulting tactical mix was really a digital-first program that included video ad units that ran online, as well as some display banners. We had we had display banners in email newsletters with NewsHawk. We had a very robust KEYT partnership, and then we also ran a bus side advertising program here in the local market. So I know the annual flow chart is hard to see, but ultimately the plan was intended to deliver 13.4 million impressions over a 33-week period. Again, we had 15 weeks of coverage in the fall that was leading into the holiday travel period, and then 18 weeks in the summer, the spring and summer, that was leading into summer travel. Ultimately, the plan over-delivered. As I mentioned, we had 13.4 million impressions that were intended for the entire program, including our digital as well as our offline placements, such as the bus sides and the television program. You can see that our partnership with Sojourn really did the lion's share of the heavy lifting, where we had display banners and video ad units running online. The reason that Sojourn was really the workhorse was because they're a display network that specializes in travel and tourism. They maintain first-party data agreements with airlines and OTAs and travel aggregators and hotels and whatnot. So it really allows us to identify in real time audiences who are actively planning travel out of the Santa Barbara market. So they were a big, important partner for this program. You can see that we also partnered with NewsHawk, and as I mentioned, KEYT, and as part of that program, we had display banners and video. So the total digital program delivered just over 13 million impressions, 11,000 clicks driving to flysba.com, and then we also had 685,000 video completes. That means that if a video ad unit was served to someone, the recipient of that particular message completed the view. So the integrated nature of the programs that are running, and by integrated I mean we're looking at our offline media, our online media, and our the coordination with our earned media team. The integration of all of those parts is really driving positive results. So we did a year-over-year comparison between fiscal year 17-18 and then fiscal year 18-19, just to understand what the site visitation looked like comparatively. Year over year, we saw that total site traffic was up 18%. We saw that new users to the website were up nearly 16%. Total sessions were up nearly 21%. And then the organic search traffic was up nearly 16%. And that lift in organic search traffic is really important. That's traffic that we're not paying for. That's, those people, those audiences have been exposed to a message. Maybe they were inspired by the message and they just went to the website because there was business that they wanted to conduct with the airport, whether it was looking for destinations or they were looking at airline carriers or whatnot. That's really important because, again, we didn't pay for that traffic. Because Sojourn is such an important part of this campaign and really our primary digital partner, we're going to do a bit of a deep dive. We're going to look at the deliveries, but also we're going to look at some of the additional insights that will help to inform our strategies moving forward. So this particular program delivered just shy of 12 million impressions in the market and just shy of 10,000 clicks to the website. We found that the highest click volume, which is probably no surprise, came from mobile devices, including tablets, and that's a lot of the exploration and the travel planning is happening online and in particular on mobile devices. We found that exposed audiences were most interested in the information that was found in the airline information section of the website. That's where people would find information on nonstop destinations, airline carriers, schedules, etc. And the way that we were able to quantify the traffic that was going to each of these key sections of content was that we placed little bits of data on each of those pages that allow us to match exposure to a message versus visitation to the page. So we found that 46% of the people who engaged with our ads or who had been exposed and then went to the website, 46% of those audiences went to the airline information page. So that's really important to keep in mind when we think just about the purchase journey of the audience. We're driving qualified audience who are interested in learning about the airport. Finally, audiences that were coming from mobile display banners and video ad units were what we would consider to be the stickiest audiences, and that just means that they had above average dwell times on the website. Those audiences were spending between a minute 26 and a minute 30 on the website. So in terms of looking at the delivery by the creative ad units, many of you will probably recall that when we were here last year, we were presenting a recap of a program that ran in the spring of 2018, and one of the standout creatives that sort of bubbled to the top was the message "Relax, Don't LAX," which was a very, very competitive message, and so we included that in the Fall 18 program. We saw a engagement rate of a 0.07% click-through rate, which was down from the previous campaign. In the previous campaign, it was at a 0.10%. And so as we're in these campaigns, we're constantly monitoring the performance of each of these messages. We found that there was an opportunity for us to refresh the messaging going into the spring campaign, and ultimately the results were positive. You can see that Nonstop Chill went back up to 0.09%, and the Don't Add Drive Time is 0.08% click-through rate. So the program ultimately requires a lot of hands-on, day-to-day active management, and ultimately they're only successful if that's how you manage them. So these are just some examples of the creative that ran. You can see it's all from the spring 2019 campaign. Don't add drive time to your flight time, and nonstop flights, nonstop chill. And then the two messages in the middle where they say 6 daily nonstops to Denver, 5 daily nonstops to Phoenix. There was a targeting tactic that allowed us to identify people who, for example, were searching for flights out of the region to Denver or to Phoenix or any of the other nonstops that we serve, and we were serving a dynamic message to them, so it was most relevant to them at the moment that they were searching for flights. So as I mentioned, we chose Sojourn because of the insights that they're able to pass back to us. And one of the insights that they're able to deliver to us is a true business impact of the display program. So during the campaign periods, they were able to identify more than 42,000 unique trip searches that occurred for trips out of the Santa Barbara area. Once they identified those unique searches, those audiences automatically were put into our targeting pool, and we began messaging to them. Of the people that had been exposed to our messaging, we were able to confirm that more than 8,000 trips were confirmed after being exposed to our messaging. We took the average domestic ticket price out of SBA based on first quarter data at $509 to estimate the total traveler spend on travel out of this airport. Obviously, this is not all revenue that goes to the airport, but nonetheless, it's revenue that can be tracked back to the campaign. And ultimately, we were able to calculate a return on ad spend at $51, just over $51. We're also really interested in learning more about the search to booking lead times, because ultimately this type of data impacts our. So as we looked at the two flights independently, fall 2018 and spring 2019, what we can see is that the majority of the search and the booking behavior is really happening for trips 21 plus days out. When we look at spring 19, we see that there's a big jump in the 60 plus days, not only in the searches but also in the booking. So we look at this data, we apply it to our flighting to make sure that we're in market when the searches are happening and when the bookings are happening. And another interesting aspect that we're able to glean is the travel duration, or the length of stay when someone leaves the market. So fall 2018, you can see, spring 2019, we can see that there's a big jump in search behavior for trips that were on the longer side. So 6+ days, but ultimately was the booking behavior was not necessarily commensurate with the search behavior. So people were searching for longer trips out of SBA, but they weren't necessarily booking those longer trips out of this airport. And so we'll share an implication when we get into the insights. So our local media partnerships, as I mentioned, we partnered with NewsHawk. We partnered with KEYT, and then we also had a 4-month-long bus side advertising program. I've already shared most of the insights about NewsHawk, but KEYT, this was a 24-week weather sponsorship. It included 15-second commercial spots, 10-second weather sponsorship, and then there was a digital advertising program that generated in total 2.9 million impressions in the market. And then the 4-month program on the bus sides, we had advertising on 50 sides, and those, you probably saw them on the roads or traveling throughout the Santa Barbara metro area. So some key insights that we have applied to our 2019-2020 plan. From a messaging perspective, what we found was that our static display banners with brand messaging versus those that were responsive or dynamic with a specific destination were the most efficient ad units. They delivered 45% of the total click volume, and then 51% of the total visits to those key content pages. And when I talk about efficiency, I really mean what it costs to capture that type of volume. There's a higher CPM associated with the dynamic ad units, but the results weren't necessarily commensurate with the price. So it makes more sense for us to invest in a more efficient vehicle that's going to drive more results. The mobile and the video ad units yielded the most engaging web traffic. And then, as I mentioned, engagement with our brand messaging increased in the second flight after the creative refreshes. So as I mentioned, the searches for longer duration trips increased during the spring campaign, but the data suggests that bookings out of this airport for those trips was not commensurate. So as we're, just thinking about, ways to be more competitive, that's, obviously that's air service development. It's working across teams to really strategize and figure out how we can sort of close that gap. And then finally, the NewsHawk referral traffic appeared to be more familiar with the airport than our prospect audiences, and so we believe that there's an opportunity for us to, as opposed to trying to build brand awareness, more of the routes, sort of applying more of that dynamic strategy to this particular partnership.
So as you can see, we not only had great success last year, but we also learned a lot, and we're able to apply it to this year's advertising plan. So just to give you all some context, these marketing and communications goals are from the original plan that Deanna mentioned. Our goals and in everything we do right now is to establish the airport as a unique community asset and economic driver. We wanted the marketing investments to demonstrably result in conversions and departures from SBA, hence that digital first approach. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it allows us not only to share with you these results, but we can in turn share these results with our airline partners. We also want to build a social media community of at least 5,000 followers. You'll see in the memo in your packet, we have far exceeded that. As of yesterday, Twitter, I believe we were at 4,200, and we're over 3,200 on Facebook, and I think we're a little over 1,600 on Instagram. But it's growing, and I was actually looking, and we gained at least one follower on Instagram every day in the last month. So it's nice because Instagram's a little more challenging. So the objectives we've set for ourselves is our advertising. We want to position SBA as the airport of choice for residents of the primary catchment area. And then we also, there's a lot of things that fall under that first objective. The second one is to provide ongoing PR support to enhance coverage of new routes and the airport in general. The staff, the marketing team is strong on the PR side, but sometimes they can use an extra set of hands. And so we bring a contractor to the table to provide that support. And just kind of step outside the day-to-day. From a strategy perspective, we will use paid media to efficiently and effectively reach a qualified audience. That's what Chris was referring to in being able to identify people who are already in the market, already considering traveling. And, we want an element of brand awareness, but we also want to catch you. When you're starting to think Burbank or LAX, we want you to think SBA. So let's be smart about that. Additionally, we want to use social media to generate awareness of our nonstop destinations and flight frequency while building that brand affinity and loyalty. And this is something new this year. The agency, our firm, took over the content for the social media in July, and we're trying a bit of a different strategic approach on this, and really with an eye towards providing some measurable results, not only to you all, but also to our carriers. We want to ensure our creative messages reinforce your unique point of difference, but also the connectivity to the world. Something you'll see evolve this year as well as for a long time we've talked about our convenience and ease of use. Now that there's so much air service coming, we can finally start really touting those nonstop flights and see that dialed up to varying degrees in the creative. And last, we will use PR to extend our message and support those initiatives.
All right, I'm going to give just a very quick overview of the paid media plan for the new fiscal year. As our budgets are remaining essentially flat year over year, it's our recommendation to sort of stay the course. We just went through a very laborious RFP process as I said, in the previous fiscal year. We reviewed those proposals once again, and then took a look at the current media landscape. And we feel strongly about continuing to build on the current momentum of the Digital First Media Program with our partner, Sojourn. We are recommending that we maintain partnerships with the same local media, NewsHawk and KEYT. And from a flighting perspective, we want to use our digital media to establish really a base of continuity across the entire fiscal year, and then use our offline media channels like the television and the bus sides that we'll see in the market to create plus-up periods in the fall and the spring when holiday and summer travel planning peaks. So as I mentioned, the budgets are going to be flat year over year, and so the allocations are essentially the same. We'll spend $80,000 with Sojourn. That'll be a video program and a digital display program with similar audience targeting and similar impression levels. We're going to use this program to reach outbound passengers during their travel planning, and it's really important that we maintain the spend level so that we can ensure ongoing access to some of the custom data pools that we're able to get. All of the data that I was able to share with you is because we've negotiated it based off of an anticipated ad spend. NewsHawk, we're going to invest $10,000 with that partnership, and what we'll have would be display banners on their website as well as display banners in their AM news report. This is going to allow us to build awareness among our hyper-local audiences. And then with KEYT, we'll invest $40,000 in that partnership. That'll be, continuation of our weather sponsorship. We'll have 15-second commercial spots, and then there will be an additional digital program that includes video ad units and display banners that will drive traffic to the website. And the purpose of this program is really to achieve mass scale in the market and build awareness across the entire DMA. Obviously, we're going into a political year, so just from a timing perspective, we want to make sure that we're accounting for those political, so that we don't deal with any disruption, just in terms of our spots running and the clutter and all of that kind of stuff. So all of that has been accounted for in the scheduling. And then finally, a continuation of our bus side program. We spend $20,000 a year with them. And this is really a great alternative to traditional outdoor advertising. And we use it to reinforce messaging that people might have been exposed to from other channels.
On the social media side, as I mentioned, we've started building the strategy for that. Now, anything we do for the airport, we really want it to accomplish at least two of these three things: inform, inspire, and engage. So when we look at content, it should inform, it should share what's going on at SBA. Is it breaking news, new routes? If it's inspiring our followers to travel. It's a surprise and delight, like carolers popping up in the terminal at the holidays, things like that. And engage. So important that we encourage follower interaction, doing surveys, polls, sharing gifts, things like that. So our goal is to, when we do a post, are we informing you? And then maybe we're asking a question, asking for feedback, things like that. So we're always trying to connect with our audience. Just to share some quick content that's been shared. These are small, but I would encourage you all to scroll through the page. It's starting to look really colorful. On the left, this is an example of a Wanderlust Wednesday post. We're starting to do those almost every week, really inspiring people to travel. Frankly, it's a wonderful way to feature our nonstop routes. It's also a way to survey folks on what nonstop routes they want. This one, actually, we did not put any dollars behind this. It's our best performing post in the last nearly 3 months. 1,000 people reached, 185 engagements. So comments, likes, shares. There's 42 comments on that as of this morning. And as this Wanderlust Wednesday, we're asking, which Pacific Northwest nonstop from Santa Barbara Airport would you choose via Alaska Airlines? Seattle, and we tag the airport, or Portland. Comment below with your choice. So we can go back to Alaska and share that information with them, which is just fun, and it's a nice way to engage with them. The middle is a welcome Delta Airlines to the SBA family, announcing the exciting service to Salt Lake City. We did a few posts related to this. All were really, really well received. And then here's an example on the right of just showing the beauty of our terminal building. This was actually a really successful post, 91 engagements, 849 total reactions. This says air travel shouldn't start with a two-hour round trip. Road trip, excuse me. That's why our passengers don't LAX, they relax. With over 32 nonstop flights to 12 major destinations, SBA is the only way to depart differently. So you can see how we're sharing the brand. People seem to be connecting with it. What I'm showing you from Twitter are 3 screen grabs that are actually from our monitoring dashboard, because I also wanted to give you a sense of the types of things we get to see behind the scenes. The top is our Salt Lake City cake of the week that I'll show you in a moment on Instagram. Or it's the cake, but we call it the cake of the week because we won the Anna Aero Cake of the Week award, which is highly sought after in the airport industry. But over 2,000 impressions just on this post that was welcoming Delta and the launch of that route. The second one is one of my favorite posts we've done in the last 3 months. We mentioned employees. In case we don't say it enough, we are so fortunate to have our dedicated, intelligent, hardworking employees making sure daily operations at SBA run smoothly and our travelers are taken care of. We thank you. And it included some photos of some events. So we plan on that being a recurring feature and making sure our employees and whether they're tenants, airport employees, that they're those faces that our customers see, and maybe a lot of them they don't see, that they get to learn about them. And another Wanderlust Wednesday tweet. This is a snapshot of our Instagram. There's that cake that won. Such a beautiful cake. An example, the shot on the left is actually what our Instagram account looks like if you look at it on your phone and you just look at our page. You can look at a lot of other airports and they look pretty boring. It might show a piece of paper or things like that. It's important that your entire account be colorful and really represent your brand. And I think our team's done a good job. This post on the bottom right is the result of a Wanderlust Wednesday post that started with, tell us your top nonstop flight wish list. The next week we narrowed it to the top 4, and that's your top 4. And it was really interesting because San Jose, there was a lot of demand for San Jose. And we shared that results in a tally for the airport staff. So in addition to managing the content, we are recommending that we add ad dollars to increase engagement. I'm sure you've all heard Facebook is a business that wants to make money, and they've decided your followers hardly get to see your posts if you don't put money behind them. So, and you certainly can't ensure people outside your own community that you've already created will see them. So we want to use this as a marketing tool, and so that will allow us to extend our posts beyond our page and followers. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but it's something that we do a lot with clients, and it will be very successful for you all. This will also give us enhanced insights, like how many likes, shares, comments, and how many click links through to our partners' pages. So, for instance, did we generate traffic to Alaska Airlines? It's much easier and more robust reporting. And of course, as we cast a wider net, we get more followers to our page, which gives us more of that organic exposure that Chris was talking about, even just to our. We always want to fill the pipeline with people who want to talk about and learn more about SBA for free. From a creative perspective, last year when we spoke to you, we shared the new campaign. This campaign was really born out of these 3 things. You know, the true consumer insight that came out of all the research you have on hand is people truly believe, and it's the truth, that Santa Barbara is easy, relaxed, user-friendly. It's just quintessentially Santa Barbara. So the campaign we landed on was Depart Differently, because when you choose Santa Barbara over the competitors, you truly are choosing to depart differently. With this, you've seen the creative from last year. We did revise, we re-edited the TV to really push up the nonstop flights and frequencies, and I'll play that for you right now. So this spot plays on Sojourn as a digital video, so people see it when they're on the internet. And it's important, it's always nice to have a text-based spot because people can mute commercials on the internet after 3 seconds. So we always think about what are they getting, and that's why we had some cost savings not having a voiceover, but also pretty much all television now you have to have some text on the screen. So we think that does a really compelling job of sharing the message. It will also be on KEYT. And we will update it as our nonstop flights continue to expand. So here's an example of the creative. This printout on the left is one that still has some shelf life. It's in a visitor's guide. But wanted to show you the examples of some of the web banners we are running. We have our Fly SBA to Salt Lake City, 2 daily nonstops to Sacramento. That's the creative that's running on NewsHawk, where we talked about a really familiar audience who already loves SBA, but we want to tell them, you don't need to go to Burbank to go to Sacramento. You can fly right here nonstop twice a day now. And of course, Salt Lake City 3 times daily. And then the 32 daily nonstops, still no stress, that's that brand message. So that's going to run in on KEYT and be paired with our TV spot. And these are just examples of the transit we ran last spring, and you'll see more of this. But the nonstops will be dialed up. Last year we ventured into the Santa Barbara Chill to Las Vegas Thrill nonstop. We all agreed after Henry, Deanna, and Chris and I sat down and talked a lot about the creative strategy as it relates to the media results we saw. We'd like to see more of that this year. So as the MTD program starts in the spring, we'll be sharing more of that with you. And just last, again, we are working on a public relations plan with our consultant, some exciting ideas to extend the message, bring out some new conversation pieces for the media, and keep our media audiences engaged here. So we just think there's tremendous opportunity for growth, and we are so proud of the results we've had to date, but more so excited to see what comes in the future. Are there any questions?
Any questions, folks? Comments?
Yeah, I have a question on the return on investment. You showed about $4 million in revenue attributable to the marketing plan at something over $500 per ticket. Now, the revenue to the airport would be something less than 10% of 500. So can we assume that the return on our $150,000 investment is something like $300,000 to $400,000?
I think that's a little bit of a complicated picture to put together, because the sources of revenue that we derive from a ticketed passenger are so diverse. And we get those sources of revenue from so many different things, not just the landing fees, but concessions, rental cars, all those kinds of things. So the ticket price that you're seeing is what the airline is getting, but of course we're getting a sliver of that in a variety of different ways.
Well, our revenue is between $35 and $40 per passenger, which would be something under 10% of that $508 ticket price. So if the $500 ticket results in $4 million in total revenue, our share would be something less than 10% of that, with a mental back of the envelope calculation.
I think your back of the envelope is better than mine.
Well, that still gives us a return on investment of 2 to 2.5.
Yeah.
Which is reasonable.
Yeah. And those that $4 million in revenue is based on a single tactic. Obviously, we can't track all of the return from our offline media, and then the program with NewsHawk, for example, we're not able to gather those insights. So that's really just a sliver of the program.
Yeah, I realize it's very difficult to say that if you spend $1 on advertising, you're going to make 10.
Right.
But broad brush, it looks like the program is successful.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? I just have because I happen to have a friend who's a student at San Luis Obispo at Cal Poly, and he takes a train down here and flies out of Santa Barbara. Happens to be to Seattle, but I don't think it would matter, because that's much cheaper than flying out of San Luis Obispo. It's cheaper to fly here than San Luis Obispo, and there are a lot more flights to a lot more destinations. So one of the things you might consider is some advertising amongst the Cal Poly students to point out that an Amtrak train ride down here and a flight out is a very good way to get to and from school.
I appreciate that, and this echoes some of the conversation Henry, Deanna, Chris, and I had. We spent a part of our time together during our planning discussion in a more tactical, competitive conversation, and I think we all think Northern Santa Barbara, Southern SLO is a great opportunity for, perhaps potentially a great challenge with the expanding air service and the additional air service provided by Alaska now. So we are monitoring that and in active conversations about adding some tactical programs. And social media will also be a key part of that, because that's a great way to reach that segment and get that message out to them. And then I think we can also enlist our PR partners to get that message out to those folks.
Okay, there were no other comments, so I will open this up for public comment. Hearing that, yeah, I'd like to. Please. And once again, if you would fill out another speaker slip so that we have your name speaking on this subject, please.
Yeah, and just again, my name is Steve Peterson, and I'm a parent, and my son, Jack Peterson, there is in the Civil Air Patrol. So I just want to comment, I'm learning a lot tonight. It was a very interesting presentation, and I think the challenge of marketing the airport and getting more passengers is not something I'd want to take on. But I saw that the first thing it said under the marketing goal was to establish SBA as a unique community asset. And I think there's two levels of marketing. There's getting more passengers, which is what pays the bill, but there's also promoting the airport. And I just, given that Civil Air Patrol here it's costing you nothing, as far as I know, to have Civil Air Patrol in the building right over here. I think what's happening is they're paying utilities but not paying rent. In terms of having an organization that's been here a long time, that is all about flying, encourages kids to get into aviation, in terms of promoting the airport and meeting it being a unique community asset, I don't know why that you would want to evict the Civil Air Patrol. But I think it's probably, I hope it's a mistake. And that is that I learned to fly here about 25 years ago and got my pilot's license above all aviation. During that whole time, I never heard about the Civil Air Patrol, even though it's here on the field. I was unaware of it, and I learned to fly when I was single and I had disposable income. I have a family now, so I haven't flown. Hopefully my son will become a parent sometime. So I'm guessing it was a mistake that somebody saw this organization in the building isn't paying rent, and they're not paying rent, so we're not making money off them. Let's get rid of them. But as I said before, the cadet program, in terms of goodwill and being a community asset and promoting aviation and promoting flying, I would just ask, why do they have to move out in 2 weeks? What's going to happen to the building? Is someone going to move in and start making the airport money? Because they cost the airport nothing right now. It's free publicity, free PR, and I don't understand the need to move them out so quickly. Is something going to happen to the building next month? Is there going to be renovation or such? I would suggest keeping Civil Air Patrol where it is, keeping the program going for the goodwill. I can't tell you that the return on investment is going to be incredible, but I'll tell you it doesn't cost anything to have them here. It's good publicity. So I would hope you would take that into consideration and say, is there any way to delay the October 15th move-out deadline so that the the cadet program can continue? And the last thing I just wanted to point out, because I don't know if it's clear, but as Ludovico was saying, my understanding is it's not a matter of they can come in once a week into a room like this and sit around and talk. They have their computers for the Cyber Patriot, they have their wind tunnel for the wind tunnel testing, they have all their equipment, they have their radios. They need a secure location that they can lock up, store their stuff, that the cadets can come in. But in terms of marketing, if the airport has the goal of being a unique community asset, I think keeping the Civil Air Patrol program and the cadet program on the airport field would be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments. I will close. The public comment for 11, 12 has been removed, so we are hereby adjourned. Thank you all very much.